Good afternoon, guys. So it's Friday, question of the week. Charli Wall here. Lovely to see you, even though I'm not seeing you, but lovely to be here. Lovely to be asked a few questions. What's going on here? I've chosen this question that came in because I think this is an important question and one which I suspect a lot of people will be interested in. And the question I chose this week was, how does one deal with narcissistic behavior from an inside out perspective? And so for those of you that don't know, who may be new to my work, I work really from the inside out understanding, something called the inside out understanding, which is also called the three principles of innate health, subtractive psychology. And so the reason I sort of caveat this question of the week with saying that is because the lady that has asked the question, I imagine out there in the world of self-help and self-development and popular psychology, there's probably many articles, blogs, vlogs, YouTube videos about how to deal with someone who is quote unquote narcissistic in your life. So the question from me appears to be coming with that angle of like, right, I might have tried all of that. She hasn't specifically said this, but I'm just guessing and reading in between the lines of the question. And maybe you yourself have asked the question, like if you've had someone who's difficult in your life, how do you deal with a narcissist? So the inside out understanding, just very briefly, it essentially means or is stating that everything that we experience in our life is coming from the inside out, meaning no person on the outside, no circumstance, no person has any power over me whatsoever, or any of you, right? So that's the kind of basis behind. It's all created from the inside out. There's not one universal way of experiencing, say, Boris Johnson. I'll use that because he's a well-known figure. You might have a visceral experience when you hear me say Boris Johnson of like hatred and disgust and a lot of kind of feeling and animosity, or you might have an experience of indifference and, you know, that name means nothing to me. There's no emotional charge to it. Or you might have like, yeah, you know, I really like that man. And that's what I mean. No human or circumstance has any power whatsoever to make you feel a certain way. So that's the inside out nature of life. Like everything inherently is created from the outside, from the inside out, not the outside in, the inside out. Now, how does one look at kind of dealing with narcissists from the inside out perspective? Is remembering that the principles, the inside out understanding, the three principles of innate health are not they're not prescribing how you deal with life or how you can deal with people, difficult people, particularly in this case, narcissists. They're a description of how life works, of how all human beings universally work, regardless of their psychology or their brain. Now, we might give labels to certain types and characteristics. That's definitely a thing. You know, there's a mental health DSM, which has many different diagnoses in, and there's, you know, all the kind of new neurodivergent diagnosis around, and what I'm saying is that the principles are pointing to something that's universal. So it's not a prescription, it's a description of how life works. So in this case, the lady that asked the question, if you are experiencing someone in your life as a narcissist, what you're inferring in some way is that you may be, and you may not be inferring this, but there might be some inference that you're a victim of someone else's behavior and someone else's psychology. And if we're all doing the best that we can see to do, which we are, even those people that we don't particularly like or we might class as narcissists, then they're doing the best that they can see to do with the thinking that looks real to them, right? So what's universal is that everyone's experiencing life from the inside out, and that will be unique for all of us. It's why we can disagree, for example, around Boris Johnson, or we can go and see the same film and we will have a different experience of that film depending on how we are in ourselves. But narcissists, when they are the label narcissist, there's certain types of characteristics that play out in someone who may be labeled by someone else as a narcissist. They themselves wouldn't see themselves that way, right? So this is also important because it's a bunch of characteristics, a bunch of psychology that people have put under an umbrella, and we've labeled that person with these particular traits narcissistic, same as sociopath, or the other places that we can go. Now, the deeper question for this is, you don't have to, like, under the guise of the principles, which is the inside out understanding, there is no way in which you have to deal with any kind of abuse on any level, in any form, right? This isn't about saying to you, the principles are saying, that we are all innocently creating our experience through thought. It always comes from the inside out, and therefore we should be understanding of other people's psychology and emotion. And yes, that is true. And there is a way in which no one need tolerate someone else's either aggressive or passive aggressive or narcissistic tendencies, because this is about you trusting yourself, trusting your knowing, and trusting your ability to say, no, this is unacceptable to me to be treated like this. So again, the deeper question points us to, what is it in you as a human being that's allowing somebody in your life that you feel isn't right for you? And whilst the principles are a description of how life works, it means that we cannot take their behavior personally. But if we do take it personally, it points back to us. We aren't trusting ourselves. We don't know that we aren't powerless. We don't realize that we're not victims of other people. And we can feel like a victim, and we can feel helpless, and we can feel tied into something emotionally if we have attachment to that person or investment in that person for whatever reason, or carry guilt and shame and fear around things to do with this particular person. So it will always come back to how you treat yourself is how you allow others to treat you. Whether you feel you have a choice, whether you feel you can speak your truth, because this comes from trusting yourself, knowing yourself, trusting that you have everything that you need, and these deeper questions around self-worth and self-esteem, and how we can often get drawn into certain ways of being, all created through thought, yes, all created through the principles, yes, and so is the other person. And I reiterate, nobody has any power to make you feel any way without your permission. And often I find in my experience of working with people where narcissism shows up, either in themselves or in people that they are in relationship with in whatever form, it's to do with self-worth, it's to do with self-esteem, it's to do with falling back into certain ways of being, despite you might not really see the principles very deeply, but there's still some part of you that isn't trusting that you're okay, that you're safe, that you're held, that that something beyond you has your back. And that's often a really big learning for people that are, that come into my field. It's I'm okay, and no one and no thing has any power outside of me to make that not true. But if I don't know that, I'm going to keep falling back into familiar and known ways of being and familiar and known familial patterns, right? Familiar patterns. And when I do that, my brain, that already is my worst enemy, if you like, 'cause it's already the sort of judge, jury, and executioner, is going to say, well, there you go. I'm right. You're broken. So it always is an opportunity for us to sort of go inwards and reflect on what's really going on here. Why am I allowing this? And what's the deeper question? Because the inside out nature of life doesn't give you any tools to deal with narcissists. What it actually does is it helps you see it's not personal, because a narcissist, someone who we may call a narcissist, is going to be a narcissist whether they're with us or in relationship with us or someone else, because these are characteristics and traits that certain members of society have. It doesn't mean they're evil. It just means that that's kind of how they've learned in life to be, to protect themselves from their own deep-rooted insecurity, right? So this is where we go on to a deeper level, but I'm not going to go there. But I just want you to know that in terms of like dealing with how does the principles deal with people who are narcissistic, it's seeing very deeply that the principles are showing you how you and them are creating your experience, nothing more, and that it's not personal. It's not your fault. It's nothing to do with you. It's how you relate to yourself, and thus how you relate to someone with narcissistic tendencies. So I hope that's helpful for you. Thank you for the question. The other 3 questions that I got were around anxiety, and I will, I think, do a sort of longer episode around that to incorporate those 3 questions that I got that were around anxiety. So look out for that. If I don't do it next Friday, I will do it just as a separate transmission, because I think it might be helpful for people. Take care of yourselves. I hope you have a lovely time wherever you are, whatever day it is, and whatever day it is when you're listening. And yeah, take care. And if you have any questions, send them my way. Just send me a message on Facebook or wherever you're watching this, send me a message. And if anyone wants free coaching and they don't mind it being live in my Facebook group that then goes on my podcast, then come and send me a message as well, because I like to do coaching live in the free group, so people get a feel for what it's like to be coached with, by me, and it gives people a chance to get free coaching if they're brave enough to do it live. And if you are in my free group, you can see all of those free coaching sessions in the guides section, which you'll find in the group. Lots of love, and take care of yourselves.